Okay, so we discussed about the capital asset pricing model, also the testing procedures of the capital asset pricing model, which is used to calculate the required rate of return from the particular asset. And we discussed about the factors like your market risk and the risk premium and the risk-free rate of return, which are basically playing the role for determination of the expected return or the required rate of return from a particular kind of security or a particular kind of asset. That part we have discussed. Then there are two other concepts which we always should know whenever we move towards the particular markets or particular kind of financial institutions. These two are basically related to the determination of interest rate and the concept of the market efficiency. These are the two things what you should know before we move towards that. So whenever we talk about the determination of interest rate, because already all of you know that interest rate is the price. Interest rate is the price always we want to get from the different type of markets where we are operating, particularly in the financial market perspective. So there we'll come across many issues. So first of all, we have to know that how these interest rates are determined. And next, we can move to the different theories or different kind of methods through which the interest rate determination are made. Because interest rate is basically the price, already I told you. And whenever we talk about the price determination, we always think about the supply and demand forces. So the equilibrium rate of interest, what always we get from the market, that is determined by the supply forces and the demand forces. So there are certain questions comes to our mind whenever the interest rate concepts basically we discuss. One is how the aggregate interest rate is determined. That is number one. That means we have to understand the supply side factors and the demand side factors. And second thing basically always comes to our mind, that why the interest rate change over the time. What are the reasons for changing the interest rate? And number three, why there is a interest rate differential across the different type of characteristics. For example, why the long-term interest rate is more than or the short-term interest rate, or why we can say that even if the maturity period of a particular asset is same, but still there is a difference in terms of interest rates whenever we calculate this interest rate from that particular asset perspective. So therefore, there are different kind of questions we have to answer whenever we discuss about the determination of interest rate in a particular market. So whenever we talk about the aggregate interest rate determination, if you go back to your economic theories, there are broadly three theories which try to explain the determination of interest rate in a particular market. So what are those different theories are? So these three different theories are basically you have classical theory, you have Longueville-Fontes theory, and the Keynesian theory. You know, as per the normal schools of thought of economics, first comes the classical theories, and then Longueville-Fontes theory is a neoclassical theory, and Keynesian theory is a totally different school of thought. Then according to classical theory, according to Longueville-Fontes theory, and according to Keynesian theory, how these interest rates are determined. So if you remember, the classical theory always assumes that there is a full employment. Supply is always equal to demand because the supply creates the demand. Whatever basically we can supply, that basically will be automatically demanded. So that's why there is always equilibrium exists in the system. So keeping that thing in the mind, the classical theory basically says interest rate is a real phenomena. That means the interest rate is determined by the real factors. So whenever we keep that thing in the mind, so it is basically the supply of the savings and the demand for investment that basically determine the equilibrium rate of interest. So whatever money is saved, that money will be invested in the market. And depending upon the supply of the savings, the demand for investments also determined. And accordingly, wherever the supply is equal to demand, there the equilibrium rate of interest can be determined. So that is the basic notion of the classical theory. So saving is always equal to investment. So if saving is equal to investment, wherever that particular intersection happens, the equilibrium interest rate will be determined in that particular place. So here then question basically we can raise, which are the factors which affect the supply of the savings and which are the factors which are affecting the demand for investments. So if those factors will move, accordingly the supply of the savings get affected and demand for investments also accordingly affected. So finally there is a movement of the interest rate which can prevail in the market. So in general case, remember we are talking about the interest rate determination in the aggregate sense. So whenever you talk about the supply of the savings, where the savings comes from the aggregate economic perspective or aggregate country perspective, what basically we can say. So saving is basically what? Your total income minus the total expenditure. If I say that y is equal to c plus s, y is equal to c plus s, that means y is equal to the total output is equal to your total consumption plus total expenditure. Then if you deduct the total output or the total income, whatever the country has, and you deduct the expenditure from that, and whatever remaining will be there, that is basically the savings. So whenever you talk about this, your savings, that means may be affected by the individuals or the households, business, and the government. So these are the different sectors which basically contribute to the saving side of the particular aggregate economy. So from the savings point of view, what is the interest rate? Interest rate is basically what? If somebody is not consuming, somebody is not spending the money now, he is basically trying to save that money. And what is the motivation for the savings? The motivation for the savings basically is to get some reward. So whenever we are keeping the money in the bank, then why we are keeping the money in the bank? We are keeping the money in the bank expecting that some kind of return we are expecting from this. And that particular return is in terms of the interest payments. So the bank is paying interest to us. So that's how we are depositing our money in the bank. And against that particular deposit, we are getting some reward. And that reward is basically in terms of the interest, what basically we get. So that's why the saving is basically always comes from the different type of sectors. And the basic motto or basic objective of the savings is to get some reward, and that reward is basically interest rate. But what basically, how that particular interest rate is determined? So this interest rate determination, whenever we look at, we have to also look at that whether whatever money is saved, that money should be invested in the market. So that's why there should be demand for investment. So whenever you talk about the demand for investment, there are certain things basically comes into the picture. One is who demands the money. Mostly the demand is made by the farms or some other economic units who basically needs the capital or the money to produce the goods. and accordingly they make the profits. Okay. So here basically what we're trying to say, whatever money is set, that money is basically invested in the market for the production purpose and or the investment purpose, and automatically wherever there is a equality exists between this savings and investment, so there the equilibrium rate of interest rate is determined. So that is the basic notion of the classical theory, that wherever the saving is equal to investment, there the equilibrium interest rate is determined. So this is what basically always we can observe. Your saving schedule is upward sloping, because if your interest rate is increasing, then your supply of the savings may increase, but the demand for investment will go down. Because whenever anybody gets the loan, if the interest rate is higher, then the demand for loans will be lower, and if interest rate is lower, then the demand for loans will be higher. So because of that, the saving schedule is upward sloping, but the investment schedule is downward sloping. So the equilibrium rate of interest rate is basically determined by the interaction of the savings and investment schedule in the economy. So if I will summarize this classical theory basically tells the equilibrium interest rate in the market is determined when the supply is equal to demand. Supply is equal to the demand. And what is the supply? Supply means we are talking about the savings only, total savings, which is prevailed in the market. And the investments are basically is the loans and other kind of borrowings which is made by the different economic units to utilize that particular money in the market for the production and other purposes. So that's why that is the equality which prevails. So you keep in the mind, the saving is always invested in the market, and whatever money is saved, the total amount of savings is all invested in the market only. So there basically the equilibrium rate of interest is determined. But is it true that all the savings are invested? Do you agree with this? Whatever money you are saving, that money is all the money can be invested in the market. Is it possible? Yes.
No, sir.
No,
Why?
sir.
Why it is not possible?
Because people want to make withdrawals.
Okay. Any other reason?
Sir, as you mentioned, banks diversify the portfolios. They give out loans for many purposes, and that necessarily doesn't go to the investment in markets. That, like, the loans could be for housing loans, car loans, and gold loans. So uh, it will lead to the demand for these products, but it will not increase the production in the market.
Why it will not? A housing loan will not increase the production in the market?
Sir, like, it is real estate investment, not the firms are investing.
But still, if the real estate investor is there, if the demand for housing will be more, then that will also have an indirect impact on the different type of inputs which are required for the housing projects. Is it not?
Yes,
Answer?
sir.
It
Yes,
will
sir.
not increase the production of the raw materials or the inputs which are required, like cement, like different iron rods. So that production will not increase. Yes or
Yes,
no?
sir. It will increase.
So that will have an indirect impact on the production also, if the whatever type of loans you are talking about. But my question is in a general sense, my question is that if you have the bank, basically you have deposited 100 rupees in the bank, or total amount of money available in the bank is 100 rupees. Is it possible for the banks to give 100 rupees as the loan?
No, sir. Banks also have to keep some minimum amount as, like,
Already
for
what
security.
Yeah, already what he had said, that some amount of money can be withdrawn, right, or by the customer whenever there is a requirement, and if people are also already aware about that particular thing. Anything else? One is some amount of money can be withdrawn in a short period of time for their transaction and other purposes. Any other component is there where the bank is not able to utilize all the deposits whatever you have made, or that cannot be given as the loan? One is, you said that some liquidity bank has to maintain to fulfill the requirements of the customers, short-term requirements of the customers. Any other reasons? Yes. कौन बोलेगा? आयुष? आयुष? Yes. Any other component is there where the bank is not able to utilize that money for the loans? Rohit? Rohit? Adrija? पता नहीं.
Maybe the bank
Yes.
has to deposit maybe the bank has to deposit some money with the regulator as well.
Regulator as well. What it is called, Priyam?
I guess it's called repo rate. On the interest rate which the bank gets is called repo rate.
The particular stipulated amount of money what the bank, a certain percentage of the total deposit has to be deposited with the regulator. What we call it?
Cash reserves.
Cash reserves. Right. Cash reserves. So that's why our system is a fractional reserve system. The banking system is a fractional reserve system where already people have said there are two components where the bank is not free to utilize that particular money for the loan purpose. One is your reserve requirements, or what we call it the cash reserve ratio. The bank has to keep certain money with the regulator. In our case, it is the Reserve Bank of India. Then out of the total deposits, it is mandatory for them to keep that particular money with the regulator. So that's why that money cannot be utilized for the loan purpose. And second point, what already you have said, that some amount of money is also bank has to keep to fulfill the liquidity requirements, or they want to satisfy the customer's requirements in the short-term period. So because of this, all the savings what we make, those savings cannot be utilized for the investment in the market, or cannot be demanded, completely cannot be demanded by the market because of certain regulatory constraint and as well as some utility constraint. So keeping that thing in the mind, the loanable fund theory has been established. So according to the loanable fund theory, there are two things. One is supply side factor, another one is the demand side factor. Not necessary that the bank is ready to provide the loan, but I am not interested to take the loan. So that is also another reason. Maybe the loan is not demanded. Complete savings what the bank wanted to give as a loan, that is not necessary that every time all the money would be utilized as the loan, whatever the bank is ready to provide. And the second supply side factor is bank also is not able to, or bank cannot basically provide all the savings as the loan. So that's why the loanable fund theory was established. What the loanable fund theory tells, generally the rate of interest is determined by the demand for and supply of loanable funds. Out of the total savings, some funds can be loanable. Some funds can be loanable, and that loanable funds what the bank is ready to provide, that particular money has to be demanded by this investor in the market also. So some component the bank has to keep for certain reasons, like your regulatory requirements and as well as the liquidity requirements. And in the demand side also, not necessary that even if the bank is ready to provide that the rest of the money as the loan, that money may not be also demanded by the business units for the investment purpose. So therefore, this theory is more realistic. This theory is more realistic. And according to this theory, the real supply and demand costs, which basically determine the interest rate, should have added to them a component of the supply of the savings. So it is not that the total money which is saved that will be invested in the market. It is the part of the savings which will be invested. And there are certain factors which also we should understand, whether whatever money the bank is ready to provide, that particular money can be invested in the market. So that is what basically always we should keep in the mind. So now coming back to this. So what are those factors which are affecting the demand for the funds? Even if the bank is ready to provide the remaining, after fulfilling all those requirements, if the bank is ready to provide that loan, then what are those factors which affect the demand for loanable funds? Obviously, the first factor comes the investments, right? So investments, already you know what we mean by the investment. Investment is basically the expenditure what the corporate sector always try to do, utilizing that money for making the different kind of capital goods and as well as the inventories for them. Short-term inventories means it is the short-term requirements, and the fixed capital basically what they are making, the capital goods that related to the fixed investments. So the investment has two components. One is fixed investment, other one is inventory investment. And we know that there is an inverse relationship between the demand for the loanable funds and the rate of interest. If the demand for loanable funds are increasing, the rate of interest is declining, and or the interest rate is increasing, then the demand for loanable fund is declining. That is first factor. First factor which affect the demand side is the investment. And second factor which is basically affecting this demand for loanable funds, that is the hoarding. What is the meaning of that particular hoarding? Because sometimes also we need the money to satisfy the desire for the liquidity. Okay. So if you are keeping more money, more cash with us, then we don't want to invest it in the market. That will have also the impact on the total demand for the loans. So if your interest rate is increasing, people will hoard more. People will always try to keep more money instead of utilizing it for certain purpose, or demand for the loans will be declining. Okay. Then we have the disk saving. That is another concept. What is disk saving basically we talk about? Here, generally the demand comes from the people at that time when they want to spend beyond their current income. If that particular thing is basically there, that means what does it mean? It means that even if your income is less, still you are consuming more. You want to spend more. There are many factors behind that, that already all of you know, that as per the consumption theories. It is not necessary that people will always only consume on the basis of their income. They can also consume on the basis of the different other external factors. They can look at what the neighbor is doing. They can look at the market conditions. There are different other factors. Already all of you know about that, or already we have discussed about the consumption theories also before. So in that case, what will happen? That will also have the impact on the demand for the funds. Then if you go ahead with the supply side factors, the supply side factors already we know that the major factor for the supply side is the savings. The more the interest rate, more will be the savings. And another one is the bank money or credit creation. Okay. So this is basically, I will explain it whenever we go for the commercial banking part more in elaborate manner, how the bank is able to create the money. But generally the banks advance loan to the business units through the process of credit creation. Some banks, if you observe, their loans are more than their savings. And they borrow the money and give it as the savings, give it as the loan. That means all the savings may not be necessarily only utilized. They can borrow the money and supply that particular money for the different other investment purposes. That is also another kind of factor which is affecting the supply side. So if there is more credit creation the bank is able to do, then the supply of the loanable funds may increase. And we have another factor which is called the disinvestment. Okay. What do you mean by the disinvestment? Disinvestment basically will occur when the existing capital is allowed to wear out without being replaced by a new capital requirements. That means you are not investing the money for replacing your already depreciated instruments or depreciated assets, whatever you have. So you are only going ahead without any investment. You are not creating any extra capital or extra fixed capital within that particular entity. So by that, you are not going to invest more in the fixed capital. And when the particular business units do that, the business units will do that whenever there is a high interest rates in the market. If there is a high interest rate, then they will not be ready to replace their already depreciated assets, whatever they have. Okay. And another factor is the dishoarding. Individuals may also dishoard the money from the past holdings at a higher rate of interest. Okay. So if the interest rate is very low, then dishoarding would be negligible. So hoarding is the factor for the demand and dishoarding is the factor for the supply. It is just reverse. So these are the factors which are affecting the aggregate supply of the loanable funds. So even if the bank is ready to provide the loan, sometimes it is not demanded because of certain reasons. And even if or the whatever loans the loans banks provide, that may not be necessarily only from the savings whatever they have. So there are certain things. There are other factors also, but some of the factors I have highlighted here. So these are the major factors which basically affect the demand and supply of the loanable funds, what the financial institutions wants to use it for the different kind of purposes. So in this case, we have the interest rate will be determined. So again, equilibrium basically exists when the demand curve intersects the supply curve. So your supply curve is upward sloping and demand curve is downward sloping. That all of you know that. There is no need to discuss that thing further. Then the other theory is Keynesian theory. You have already read this. I will just again brush up these things for you. So according to Keynes, interest rate is a purely monetary concept. It is a monetary phenomenon. Okay. That means because Keynesian theory is mostly based upon the or always try to explain the equilibrium in the short run. So according to Keynes, the rate of interest is determined by the monetary factors. That means it depends on the actions of the monetary authorities. And monetary authorities are basically the central bank and the government. Because all of you know that the Keynesian theory believes the intervention of the government. So there is a government intervention. So if there is a government intervention, then mostly the rate of interest determined by those monetary factors or depends on the actions basically taken by the monetary authorities, and as well as the attitude of economic units. towards the holding money as an alternative to holding bonds. You remember, Keynes' theory mostly always compared between bonds and the cash. So other kind of securities were not considered in that particular point of time. So financial assets wise, they were considering the bonds, and from the other side, the liquidity side, they were considering the keeping the cash or keeping the money in hand. So in that case, what Keynes said, the interest rate is basically determined by the interaction between the supply of the money and the demand for money. Interest rate determined by the supply of the money and the demand for money. So if you know that why the money is demanded, or what are those reasons for demand for money, and what are those reasons for the supply of the money, and how the money is supplied, then you can say that wherever there is an interaction or intersection happens between this supply and demand, there the interest rate is determined. But now you have to answer me how the supply of the money is determined according to Keynes. You have studied macro. जो नहीं पढ़े हैं, so they cannot answer, but all of you have studied macro. Can you tell me, according to Keynes, how the money supply is determined? Anybody? Yes. Divyans? Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Money supply.
Sir, yes, sir. I don't know, sir.
You don't know? Okay. कौन बोल सकता है? तुषार? तुषार?
Yes, sir. Sir, सोच रहा हूँ अभी.
According to Keynes, what is the theory about the supply of the money? सोच रहे हो? श्रीहरि? नहीं पता?
No, sir. Income of the individual. Maybe.
Income of the individual. Okay. Priyansa?
Sir, narrow money and broad money, there are some components.
अरे वो तो monetary aggregates what you are talking about. M1, M2, M3 ना? So these are monetary aggregates. But my question is specific. According to Keynes, how the money supply is determined?
Sir, what I remember is that at equilibrium, money supply equals money demand, and money demand is determined, and then money supply is like.
So Keynesian framework में money supply का Keynesian framework में money supply का कर्व कैसे दिखता है?
Sir, upward sloping.
Upward sloping. Money supply is upward sloping according to Keynesian framework.
Sir, it's a vertical straight line.
It is vertical line. Good. Why we say that it is a vertical line? Yes. बोलो बेटा, vertical line क्यों है?
It depends on the price of the goods, and it is taken to be constant.
If it depends upon the price of the goods, तो vertical नहीं होना चाहिए ना रे? Sneha?
Sir, it is independent of the interest rate.
It is independent of the interest rate. So if it is independent of the interest rate, can I ask, according to Keynes, money supply is exogenously determined or endogenously determined?
Sir, exogenously determined.
Exogenously determined. So what do you mean by exogenously determined?
So the government or RBI decides the amount. It is not dependent on
It is not dependent. Okay. Okay. So that means the particular money supply does not depend upon any other factors. Am I right? That is the meaning of the exogenously determined? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So why do you think that the money supply is not exogenously determined? Is it true, or it is only an assumption?
Sir, because it is the RBI supplying the money, so according to the money demand, they can supply the money and increase and decrease according to the demand of money. And demand of money is determined in the market. So
Demand for money is determined in the market. Okay. So if money supply is exogenously determined, that means we are telling that no other economic factors which are responsible for this. So therefore, the Keynesian theory basically has given a lot of attention to the demand for money. They have said that money supply is exogenously determined. It is only determined by the monetary authorities, whether it is the central bank or the government, who decides that how much money supply will be done, and they can do it on the basis of the demand for money which is happening in the market. So that's why Keynes theory does not talk about much about this supply of the money. So those theories are mostly concentrating on the demand for money. So now I will come back to the demand for money. So why the money is demanded? What are the basic reasons for demand for money?
sir, according to Keynes, there are three components: transaction, precautionary, and speculative. So, for transactionary purpose, money is demanded for day-to-day transactions, and precautionary motive is the household or any sector keeping money as a precaution for unforeseen conditions, and speculative motive is the money demanded in the stock market.
Why stock market? Has Keynes theory talks about stock market, or they talked about only bond market?
It's a bond market, yes, sir.
At that time, they were mostly concentrating on the bond market. Okay, good. So now you tell me there are three motives you said, or one is your transactions motive, and another one is precautionary motive, other one is the speculative motive. So whenever I talk about the transactions demand for money, what factors determine the transactions demand for money? Which factor determines the transactions demand for money?
Disposable income.
Income. Any other factor? Go ahead. You are right. One is income. Any other factor is there, or only income is a factor which affects the transactions demand for money?
Sir, real income, price. Sir, price, we take the real income, so it becomes independent of price.
Independent of the price. You are right. So according to Keynes, the transactions demand for money is largely dependent upon the income only. Okay. So if you say this, Basically, consumer need this money for the transaction purposes, for buying and selling of the goods and services. So which factors basically affect the transactions demand for money? It is the income that already. Then you can consider the, what we call it, the time interval after which the income is received. Banking developments, how many financial institutions are there, what are the different other alternatives where the money can be utilized for other purpose. And we have the industrial structure. Okay. So therefore, according to this theory, if you talk about the income, if you assume that your transaction demand for money is represented as MT, MT is the transaction demand for money, you are representing it, then MT is equal to, MT is a function of Y. Y means income. And obviously, if you go for the identity, you can write that MT is equal to KY. Okay. And the slope of the transactions demand for money is positive. Okay, that means dMT by dy is greater than 0. That is one factor which is affecting your transactions demand for money. And what is the other factor? Already I told you, you have the spending habits and as well as the frequency of income receipt. That means the length of the time period which basically elapses between the receipt of the money income and its disbursement. Shorter the pay period, smaller will be the amount of money required for the transaction purpose. So that is the another factor which is affecting the demand for money. Then we have banking developments. Okay. So if there are alternative modes of payment, instead of paying in terms of cash, in today's context, if you see, we don't need cash in our hand. We don't need cash in our hand. The reason is basically we have other avenues. We can pay through check. We can pay always through the online transactions. So whenever those kind of things happen, then what basically we can observe that always the demand for liquidity or demand for cash or demand for money declines. Then we have the industrial structure. What kind of industrial structure we have? What do you mean by vertical integration? Anybody?
Sir, if the different, like sometimes different parts or different levels, intermediates of one good are produced at different levels. So if all those firms integrate together, then it is vertical integration. So like if they were separate, then they will demand loans separately. So
Right.
investment in the market will be more, but if they will integrate, then there will be one firm, so demand for funds will decline.
Good. So that's why the if there is more vertical integration happens in the market, that also will decline the transactions demand for money. So these are the major factor what Keynes has highlighted and tries to explain. But mostly, if you see the Keynesian framework, they have given a lot of attention to income only. So according to Keynes, income is the major factor which is affecting the transactions demand for money. Then we are coming to the precautionary demand for money. And already what she said, the precautionary demand for money means the money is basically demanded for the to meet the requirement which may happen. Yes.
Sir, the second point in transactions demand for money,
Mhm.
the banking development, sir,
Hmm.
how it declines money demand.
How it declines the money demanded. Okay. So, for example, why you are holding money? You to pay something. Whenever you are buying something or you are spending something, then you want money to pay that. Yes or no, Ray? Right? So
Yes, sir.
if the alternative modes of payments are there, let now you are not paying through cash, you are paying through the online transactions, right? Yes or no?
Yes, yes,
So if you
sir.
are paying through online transactions, so are you holding the money with you?
No, sir.
So then what is happening? The demand for money in that sense to keep the money in terms of a liquid cash, it is not declining.
Yes, sir.
So that is what basically what we are trying to talk about. If your alternative modes of payments will be more, there are alternative avenues are there, then there is no need to hold the cash with you. It is basically holding the liquid cash with you. So if instead of holding that, you are keeping the money in the bank, and whenever you are keeping the money in the bank, it's not necessary that we are spending that money every day, right? But whatever period the money is kept in the bank, that money can be utilized for other purposes for the by the bank. Yes or no? Even for one day, you think about in an aggregate
Yes, sir.
sense. So in that sense, if you are at all to you are going to utilize that services of other modes of payment, then always we prefer to have the money in the bank instead of holding it in terms of the cash, right? So the
Yes, sir.
demand for
Got it.
cash in the hand basically will be affected if the alternative avenues are there for you. That is what basically we're talking about. Key banking habits or the banking developments can have also the influence on the transactions demand for money or the money what you are trying to hold in your cash. Is it clear, Abhidev?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then we have another reason that already you told that is the precautionary demand for money. The precautionary demand for money means how the money is demanded to meet this unforeseen contingencies. Unforeseen contingencies. You see, what are those factors which may influence the precautionary demand? Okay. Obviously, income will be there. No doubt about that. Income is a factor which may affect your precautionary demand for money. Then we have the other factors. The nature of the business, access to the market, degree of liquidity of the asset, degree of conservatism. So can you elaborate? Can you tell me what do you mean by the nature of the business? Anybody can guess?
So the risk involved in the business, if the business is prone to failure, then the precautionary demand will be high.
Precautionary demand will be high. Good. Okay. Access to the market, access to the money market. So riskiness of the business or nature of the business will have the impact on the precautionary demand. What do you mean by access to the money market?
Ability to raise funds when required.
Okay, good. Ability to raise the funds at the time of requirements. How easily or how conveniently you can raise the funds from the market, how much access is there. So that also will decide that if your access is good or it is easier for you to raise the money from the market in an effective way, in a better way, or in a cheaper way, or in an efficient way, then also that will have the impact on the precautionary demand. Degree of conservatism, it is a psychological factor. What does it mean?
How much risk the company is willing to take?
How much
Risk the company or the business is willing to take.
थोड़ा जोर से बोलो रे, सुनाई नहीं दिया. Little bit louder, Nitin.
How much risk the company is willing to take?
Okay, how much risk the company is willing to take? Okay, somebody else was telling something. Yes, who was telling? Sneha.
I was saying the similar thing, like how much the individual chooses to preserve the demand, preserve the money.
So if the degree of conservatism is more, then the precautionary demand is more or less?
More.
More. Okay. Okay. Then the degree of liquidity, how to define that? Degree of liquidity, how we can define this?
How easily
How easily we can convert that
Convert the
particular
asset
asset into cash.
into cash.
Yeah. How easily this particular asset is converted into cash. That is basically we call it the degree of liquidity. Okay, good. So these are the major factors which basically affect the precautionary demand for money. Then we have the speculative demand for money. Okay, already you know that what do we mean by the speculation. The speculation means basically always we try to get some return from the market by utilizing that particular money, but there is some risk involved in that. So the money which is demanded from the speculative purpose, that is largely depends on the rate of interest in the market. Okay. So that's why there is an inverse relationship between interest rate and the speculative demand for money. So the relationship, if you want to show between the interest rate and the speculative demand for money, that is basically is called the liquidity preference curve. That is called the liquidity preference. That curve is basically called the liquidity preference curve. That means, according to Keynes, the speculative demand for money is a function of the interest rate. If the interest rate is increasing or decreasing, accordingly, it will induce the market participant to invest in that particular financial market. And already all of you know that, or already we have discussed that Keynes was mostly targeting the bond market. So if the interest rate will be lesser, then the price of the bond market will be higher. The price of the bond will be higher. If interest rate will be higher, then the bond price will be lower. Okay. So that's why the interest elasticity of speculative demand for money increases as the interest rate declines. If you are expecting that the interest rate is going to be down, that means if you are investing in the bond at a higher interest rate, you have, whenever there is a high interest rate, you have bought the bond at a lower price, and whenever the interest rate will decline, then the price of the bond will be increasing, and at that particular point of time, you can always sell that particular bond. So that's why you can generate some extra return from this. So that's why the speculative demand for money is basically a function of the interest rate. And for your information, I can tell you, the Keynesian theory has not talked much about the precautionary demand, although that theory has highlighted this precautionary demand. But Keynes' theory is mostly concentrated on, to some extent, the transactions demand and the speculative demand. They have elaborated more on the transactions demand for money and the speculative demand for money. So the precautionary demand for money part is more or less is not that way covered in the Keynesian demand for money theories. So that's why according to the Keynesian framework, if you summarize, the demand for money is largely a function of the income and the interest rate. Major factors I'm talking about. There are other factors. Already we have discussed certain factors like banking developments and other kind of thing. and your industrial structure, then the frequency of income received and all these things. But if you summarize this thing, and we can say that largely the demand for money is a function of your income and the interest rate. And here income is the major factor which is affecting the transactions demand for money, and rate of interest is determining the speculative demand for money. So that's why the Keynesian, in the Keynesian framework, the demand for money concept is defined, and supply of the money is already there, which is exogenously determined. That's why it is a vertical line. So that's why wherever the demand for money is intersecting this supply of the money, which is exogenously determined, there the equilibrium rate of interest is fixed or is determined in the market. So that is about the Keynesian theory. What is liquidity trap? पढ़े हो ना रे?
Yes, sir.
What is the liquidity trap? When it
Sir,
happens?
when interest rate is very low, then
Go ahead.
speculative demand is very less, so the whole money is liquid in the economy.
Okay. Why if there is a low interest rate, the speculative demand for money is low?
So because speculative demand for money is directly proportional to interest rate, so interest rate can't go lower than that.
Speculative demand for money is directly related to interest rate.
No, sir, inversely.
So if I'm not talking about that thing, you can explain. If the interest rate is very high, then what will happen to the financial asset? The price of the bond will increase or decrease?
So decrease.
If interest rate is high, then the price of the bond will increase or decrease?
Sir,
P is
increase.
equal to
Yes, sir.
C by R. Okay. This, if interest rate is increasing, then the price of the bond will decline. You don't remember? Whenever we go for the valuation of the bond, so how basically the bond price is determined? It is the present value of the cash flows, right? If in the market the interest rate is very high, then the price of the bond will be more or price of the bond will be less?
Less.
Which makes sense.
Sir, like that's what I said. When interest is very low, price of bonds is very high. So people don't prefer to buy the bonds and they keep the money as liquid. So
exactly, that is the answer what I was expecting from you. So already you have said these things. So if you see this, what basically the liquidity trap is? The liquidity trap basically tells that this the rate of interest at which the speculative demand for money becomes perfectly elastic is called the liquidity trap. If you see this right hand side diagram, you will find that whenever the rate of interest will move, accordingly your demand for money will change. But once the interest rate will reach in a particular level, the holders, the wealth holders or the particular entities, individual market participants, hold their entire wealth in the form of money instead of holding the interest bearing bonds, because the bond price becomes very high in that particular time. So that's why they will be reluctant to invest in that particular bond. So at the liquidity trap, rate of interest, money becomes perfect substitute for the bonds. So at the liquidity trap, rate of interest, whenever the rate of interest is very low, in that particular time, people will prefer to hold money instead of investing it in the bond market or in the financial assets. So that concept is called the liquidity trap. Okay. So in summary, we can say that your total demand for money is equal to your transactions demand for money, speculative demand for money, and the precautionary demand for money and the speculative demand for money. And your speculative demand for money is basically is a function of Y. So if you combine these two, already I told you, the total demand for money is a function of both income and the interest rate. The income and the interest rate are the major factor which is determining this demand for money in the market. So that is what the interest rate determination is made. Money supply is exogenously determined. That means it is determined by the monetary authority. So because of that, you will observe that there is a, if you want to move this, then only it can be moved by the monetary authorities only. So if you want to decline it, it can go to the left hand side, then that also will be possible only by the monetary authorities. So therefore, we have the different scenarios of the money supply, and this is your money demand function or money demand curve. And once this interest rate will reach in this, for example, here we have taken 0.5%. So if the interest rate is here, then we are basically reaching in the liquidity trap. That means these market participants are not interested to invest in that particular financial assets which are available in the market, and they will prefer to hold money completely. So that is what basically we reach in the liquidity trap region. So these are the different theories which basically always we consider whenever we talk about the determination of the interest rate in the market. So in this case, what basically, if I will ask you, so that for example, we say mostly the interest rate determination is happening in the bond market because Keynes has talked about the bond market. So let us little bit discuss about when the demand for bond curve or the factors which basically shift the demand curve for the bonds and the factors which are basically affecting the supply of the bonds. For example, I will give you some of the yes
Break.
ब्रेक चाहिए ठीक है 5 मिनट ओके